Welcome to The Funny Kind with Erica Gumieny, bringing heart, humor, and hope to everyday life. Laughter and love really do make a difference, and Erica's here to prove it. Part deep dive, part stand up for the soul. This show blends humor, heart, and real talk to help you stop believing the lies that hold you back. Whether she's flying solo or chatting with guests, Erica brings her signature mix of authenticity, wit, and wisdom, reminding you that growth doesn't have to be so serious. So pull up a chair, exhale, and get ready to laugh, reflect, and reconnect with the extraordinary human you already are. Because this is The Funny Kind, where humor meets healing and inspiration meets action.
Hello, everyone. Great to be with you today. I'm really excited to have back with us our wonderful friend, Jonathan Maserian, who is a longtime friend of ours, our families, and just a precious human being in this world. You may have listened to our discussion a while back called Faith in Action. That was a wonderful support for me to figure out how we can be light in the world. And Jonathan had some really great insights in that conversation. So I'll share that link with you as well. But this discussion is going to be really interesting because if you listened or watched the last episode, it was me and my friend Allie being silly and talking about gifts and all that. And now we're getting into the light and breezy conversation of unforgiveness. So, Jonathan, thank you for being with us to dive into another deep talk.
Love it. Glad to be here. Love you. Love the show. Love your book, Erica.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So last time I made the image for our podcast episode and it was a cartoon of the two of us and it was kind of fun. But this discussion today just felt a little bit uncartoony. So I decided to just use our regular pictures. So, we're just going to be a little serious today and that's okay. So Jonathan mentioned the book Journey from the Ashes, which is a wonderful book that came to life late last year in 2025 and is making its way to hearts to help people unlearn the lies that have been holding them back. And each month has a theme in the book. It's a daily devotional. So it's perfect for people like me with the world's shortest attention span. With just a few paragraphs a day to reflect on and think about. So every month has a theme, and here in March is the theme of forgiveness. And we're going to talk about that today. And we titled today's discussion, The Trap of Unforgiveness. And I'll go into a little bit of why, but I have the pleasure of being with a group of women called the Journey Circle. And we started meeting this year in January, and we're reading the devotional together and meeting throughout the year. And it's really awesome. Okay. Really great group of 25 women, all trying to shed stuff that is no longer serving them. It's really wonderful. And I'd like to share with you a little exercise that we started with. And Jonathan and I talked a little bit about it, and he's going to kind of help me unpack what happens when you hold on to this unforgiveness. So I gave everybody a box of rocks, if you will. Okay. And little bricks that we put little rocks in like this, like big rocks. Look at my fancy ring. Big rocks and little rocks. Okay. They kind of represent things that we are holding unforgiveness for ourselves or for others. So we kind of went through this, like I had on this long table, I had all these rocks laid out on paper plates. And you walked by and picked them up and put them in your box. And then we're carrying them with us all month long and just talking about like the weight of unforgiveness. And so I started out and used myself as an example and kind of went back to as early as I could think of when some of those early wounds happen to you and you start to kind of get hurt and hold on to these stories of wounds that have happened to you. And not that they are stories, but things happen to us. And I used some examples from my childhood and just talked about, and I cried, and I just talked about how you feel when someone hurts you and you're like, oh my gosh, I hate them. How could they do this to me? This is awful. and you remember it and it's just raw and you're like right back there and you're so justified in it. And you're like, yeah, bunch of jerks. Yeah, right. And so then you put it in your brick and then you keep going, or your box, and you keep going. And then another person starts to hurt you and you throw them in with it and you keep going and keep going. And then you start doing stuff and you're like, now you blame yourself because you begin to act in a way, at least in my situation, where you act in a way that's like, all that hurt starts to kind of spoil how you see the world outside you, and you start to allow things to happen to you that you may not have if you hadn't have gone through some of those experiences, if I'm making any sense. So I kind of went through this whole unforgiveness thing, had this big box of rocks, heavy burden, and then kind of talked about how I like to push things down and forget about them and say, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, I'm fine, it's over, whatever. But they kind of those things tend to seep out of us. So I went back to the original part of the table where I started and kind of started taking these rocks out and realizing how I might be able to, or thinking about how I might be able to look at these people a little bit differently. And then I started to cry and have more compassion for people. So that's kind of is the symbolic thing that I'm doing with this group for March. And I just thought it was a really powerful thing to think about, unforgiveness being a weight we carry. So with that, enough babbling on my part. So Jonathan, after I said all that, what do you see about the weight of unforgiveness, even deserved, if that makes sense?
That's a great question, Erica, because here's the reality. I think the reality is all of us have been hurt to varying degrees, right? I'm not saying that all those hurts are the same, but all of us have been hurt on some level. And like, if we're really honest, probably all of us have also hurt somebody else. And we'll obviously easily focus on the first part of that statement and kind of minimize the second part to some degree. But what I want to do is, I think it's important for us to process like the reality when we have been hurt, especially by a parent or a spouse or a loved one or someone that, we're really close to. I mean, these feelings of anger and resentment and rage and justice and vengeance, that's normal. I think that's all part of the being created in the image of God. These are the emotions that God has given us, and those things are normal. So I just want to validate that first of all. I think the challenge where you're trying to open up the door is, at what point are those normal feelings cross the line into that rock that's weighing us down? And how do we know, the difference between, hey, we're just upset, not just, but we're upset because of what that other person has done, and now it's crossed the line into unforgiveness. And so I have some thoughts for us, and just some easy points that we can talk through to the degree that you want to. But I love that image of the rocks that we carry. Sometimes we enjoy carrying those rocks, if I can be really honest, because it empowers us, especially when we've been on the receiving end of violence or abuse. This gives us some agency. It gives us some ownership sometimes. And while that can be healthy on a very, very short-term level, long-term, it's unhealthy for us. It's unhealthy for our families. It's unhealthy for our desire to move forward. So one of the things that really hit me when it comes time to talking about unforgiveness is that unforgiveness really, it imprisons us more than it does the person who did the offending to us. Like, we're the ones that are trapped, in a sense, in our world of, hey, we need justice and this person has to have, these types of consequences and stuff like that. In some ways, when we carry that spirit of unforgiveness, we're the ones that are imprisoned by it.
Yeah.
It's that
I so
burden.
feel that. I so, just to add on to that from a it, for me, like forgiveness is easy when somebody stops hurting me. Like they're passed away, or we broke up, or I'm not working there anymore, or whatever. But when somebody is actively injuring you, that is really difficult. And we went through a situation a couple years ago with someone, and it was very difficult. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm not really great, never really, I'm not the best conflict management person. So, it was just really, really difficult. And I was writing about this forgiveness stuff, and I had this image of a trap, like a foothold trap, one of those silver ones that like has those, like blades on it that snaps down on somebody's leg, and it's all gooey and gross and disgusting and stuff's coming out, blah, blah, blah. And I imagine myself sitting in this like abandoned, like deserted, dusty, dreary place on the ground with this trap on me. And I looked across, and there's this person that I'm actively dealing with. And I see them in the trap, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. You deserve it. Jerky face, glaring at each other, And then I look down and I'm like, hold on. I'm sitting here. So that trap thing is so true. And it feels so justified when it's somebody else. But boy, when I want forgiveness, right, I'm just like, can you please take off this trap right away? And I'm sorry. And God's like, oh, I forgive you. And you're like, great, all forgotten. Thank you. But, hard to do with someone else.
Right. That trap often is ensnaring us versus, penalizing the other person. I think the other thought I have, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is unforgiveness keeps the past alive.
Oh my gosh.
Like when we refuse to release what happened then, like it still controls us today. Does that make sense?
Dude, yeah. My sister passed away a couple years ago, and we had, not a super great childhood, and we used to sit together and relive it a lot and go over it. And it's like, you get a high from it in a way. Like it's like and this book is called Journey from the Ashes. And when I was first writing it, like ashes in this is represented to be the things done to you, the things done by you, in this pile of ashes, and it's your work to move away from them. But you could sit there and stare at them, and it's like the ashes are alive, like just after you dump a grill, like it's still burning and it's still hot and it's smoking. And I almost imagined that it's alive and it's calling to you and it's beckoning you and it's evil. And it's like, don't leave me, stay. How could they? Oh, they're terrible. Oh yeah, you should do that. It's like, and then I feel like I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm sick of talking about it.
Yeah.
I want to follow forward.
That's a great. I think one of the other challenges is I think about unforgiveness. And again, using your illustration of those rocks that we carry around, I think one of those rocks that we can carry around, that when we don't forgive, it really changes, almost like distorts our view of God, our view of others, our view of ourselves. It's almost like we're putting on those glasses, and then everything we see is through the lens of that bitterness, maybe almost. And again, bitterness be justified. Like we're the victims, we're the ones that had the abusive parents or spouses or whatever it is, bosses or things like that. That's all legit. But if we don't release it, then that bitterness just shades our view of every significant relationship that we have in life.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like, for me anyways, as I look back and I was able to, I'll always be working on stuff, until I take my last breath, and I'll be like, wait, I figured it out, but I think about, okay, now I lost my track. What was I saying? I think about when because of those glasses that you talked about, and it's almost like when I'm attracted or magnetized to other people that may treat me similarly.
Mm.
And I'm like, yep, that feels right. That feels right. And I say, one of them, I don't know if it's, I don't know if I doubt I came up with it. I probably stole it from somebody along the way, but we teach people how to treat us, which is someone wise said. And then it's like, how low is your line? Like, what is your line? Because you're allowing it. Not to say that, of course, I'm being sensitive that not always are you doing that. But for me, anyways, I started to really look at that and say, I am the child of God. This is not okay. I don't think you understand. This is not okay, talking to myself. So yeah, I think, and so forgiveness is like a trap, a tricky trap. Yeah.
Forgiveness does is that it frees us up then to see God in the way that he truly is and the depth of his love for us and the way that he truly cares for us. And we're able then to see others probably in a more holistic sort of way, not just two-dimensional, all evil, all vile type of people. Yes, they are evil and there are some vileness, but most of the abuse or the difficult situations we go through in life are also from real people who probably have had real trauma themselves who have not dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that to justify it.
Yeah.
What that is.
Yeah. And that has helped me a lot to be able to stop and to, look at people, how God might look at, how I want God to look at me. And I want him to say, oh, honey, I'm so sorry that happened. Of course, I understand why you did that, honey. It's okay. It's all right. And I want to talk to myself that sweetly, but my voice goes much lower, So when you have experienced that kind of forgiveness and you have been able to allow God in, I don't know what the opposite of distort is, to clarify, to
with
clear
greater
up,
clarity.
yeah, on how you see other people. How has that changed you in the relationships with people that you've had?
I'll give you a great example is for me, it was my father who was an abusive religious leader, abusive husband, abusive parent. And after my parents' divorce, he became mentally ill, criminally mentally ill. He died estranged from the family. And it was just recently. I remember forgiving him 26 years ago and very clearly feeling that freedom. But it wasn't until like just a few months ago when I was working with my spiritual director who challenged me and said, hey, what's something positive you can say about your father? And I just sat there and I honestly couldn't. And then after the call, I realized, oh, man, I've got a lot of work to do that in an entire 60 something years of life, like I couldn't find one thing positive. And that positive doesn't outweigh all those negatives, doesn't remove the hurt or make it make sense, but it forces me to grow and mature in ways that maybe I didn't want to. I'd rather stay in my unforgiveness and just see him as a two-dimensional, all evil person versus a fully orbed human being that had difficult parents himself who barely spoke the language and all sorts of troubles and trials in life like that. So I think just a real life recent example on my side of things.
Yeah. I go ahead.
No.
I like
I've
what
got another
you're,
rock.
yeah.
I'm
You've got
sorry.
another rock. You only have one rock. That's impressive. I feel like I have so many of my friends that did this are like, I don't think I'm going to need another box for all my rocks. I like what you said where 26 years ago you thought you had it taken care of. It's like this is a process. And so I like what you're saying, that that's really good about being able to say something positive. What are some other ways that you might know that you haven't fully forgiven somebody? I'm just thinking this.
Yeah, I think, well, that's a great question. I think one of the things is like, just what is that natural instinctual reaction when that person's name comes up or that situation arises? Like there's a false statement that we say you have to forgive and forget. And I think that's a horrible thing. I think remembering past hurt is actually a super helpful thing and can actually prevent us from falling into that same trap in the future. So just because we remember a past hurt doesn't mean that we have, are still in the process of forgiving or we have unforgiveness. Our memory is actually a guide that God's given us to help us. However, if that memory then draws out in us those emotions and we start to ruminate, or for me, it just flips me back to being a child and being scared or something like that. Those are good signs that, man, I've got some more work to do to kind of adjust onto my life. I think another way is if you have somebody in your life who really cares about you, they're able to see sometimes clearer than we are, right? Like they're able to see, hey, I think every time we talk about this or every time this situation comes up, you kind of react this way. Sometimes our trusted friends, spouses, coworkers in life might see in us, even our kids, that we're still some unforgiveness.
I know for me, for so long, I harbored such resentment towards my mom, like really intensely. And I remember it was like, Mother's Day or something like that. We would always joke how difficult it was to get a card for her, you know. And now when I tell stories, which are not stories, like true things that happen, but stories makes it seem like I'm, at least stories how I remember them, things that happened in the way that I remember them. I have a harder time doing it now because I want to apologize before I do and say, Mom, I'm telling this to help somebody else. I hope you know I love you and I forgive you. Whereas before I'd be like, let me just tell you. Yeah. Because we joke about like those of us with really good stories, man, we can do it verbatim. We can go through the whole story and with all the little pauses and all the little blah, blah, blahs. But it's like, I don't think of her like that anymore. I remember when she passed away and the beautiful moment of her death and the, Jesus coming to her. And it was this most beautiful experience that she had in her passing. From my perspective, I was with her. It was beautiful from my perspective. And it was a lovely time of connection with her. And I think of her now in heaven and fully restored. And you helped me with that all those years ago of, healing doesn't always happen on this side of things, and I see her now who she was meant to be, all of the stuff that she did. It's like it's because of these boxes that we hold on to and build from, and this foundation that that it feels like the enemy is just, piling onto us. And the next thing you know, 40 years later, there we are. And
replicating those things sometimes because we haven't done the hard work of working through it. This is what I appreciate about what you're doing, Erica. This is why I think I appreciate your book even as well, is that it's that challenge for us to do that difficult work so that we can be the women and men that God has created us and designed us to be. It's a little too easy to stay in the rut than it is to do the hard work to get out of that rut and to make those significant in our life. Right? Like telling stories, man, we can all do that. I can list you the way all of my family, my wife, everyone who I've ever worked with, how they've hurt me. Right. But like for me to have that same list of what I've done to other people or how I've hurt other people, that doesn't exist.
Right. We don't want to play that. We don't want to have that podcast. Let's do the other one. Yeah. Let's one up. Yeah. Well, let's one up each other on what's happened to us, but not let's one up each other on what we've done for sure. Right. Oh my gosh. And I think for the unforgiveness that I carried for myself and like the shame that I would carry for things that I've done, very similarly, like, who do you think you are trying to be better? Yeah. The beating of myself and when I make a mistake, even now, I'm more, thanks to therapy and a lot of, your help and reading God's word and being around amazing friends and all the good things. And my husband and just all the support that we have in our life, because we now know we deserve it to have that kind of relationships in our lives. But it's like, I just don't have time for that anymore. But sometimes a memory will come back and it's like, you just kind of like, whoa,
Yeah, the
And you're
difference
just, go
I
ahead.
think that is now is when that memory comes back, it doesn't trigger us into that spiral. It's a pause. We acknowledge it, we see where it's coming from, and we recognize it. Yep, that's because of those past hurts. And then I affirm, nope, I've worked through that, I've moved on, and now I continue going forward. And the beautiful thing with what you're doing as well is that you're using all those past hurts, stories, your mom, your sister, to like make a positive difference for other people. In
Yeah.
that sense, these memories aren't, there's a line in a book that says memories are just dead men making trouble. And it's a beautiful imagery of almost like these dead people coming out of the grave, just causing disruption.
Mm,
But what you're doing is more than that, right? These are memories that are designed, or you're using them. God's
yeah.
allowing you now to change the course for other people's lives. And that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
for sure. And I know for me, I used a lot of ways to try to numb myself in those feelings. When I would get those emotions, those intense emotions, I was a very good number, whether it was eating or drinking or working or busyness or whatever it was. I had a very hard time really being comfortable feeling the discomfort of all of this stuff. And my therapist just told me about something, and now I can't remember. It's a poem of some sort, but it's basically welcoming in these feelings and saying, "Come on in, have a seat. I'd like to hear from you. What do you want to talk? What do you?" And I was just like, "That's so cool," because if you try to push them down and shove them down, which I was a queen at, I was so good at it, and it doesn't work that way. But once you open up and talk about it and feel the terrible, and bring the light into the darkness, which I do mention a lot in this book, of like hiding in the corners and feeling really comfortable there and being like, I don't want anybody to see this in here, but that's where you got to get in there. You got to shine the light in there. You got to clean it all out. And then it doesn't have any power over you anymore, ironically, when you really talk about it. Oh my gosh.
And maybe that's the beautiful thing of having a discussion like this, where let's talk about that tough side of unforgiveness and like super honest and real. This is what it looks like in our lives. This is what it looks like when we hold on to it. And it's an encouragement for us then to like do that hard work of seeking that forgiveness, of giving ourselves that forgiveness, of freeing ourselves, of being able to live the lives that are the fullest lives that God wants us to live.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, all of you that are watching, if you have any rocks like this that you're carrying around, we welcome you to think about that and work on releasing them, and that you can, and that God is with you when you do that. And um we could probably talk about this for hours. But I just feel like this is such a gift to be able to be free from the stories that have held us back for so long, and that the world needs us all to be activated and moving forward to make the world a better place. And so enough of this nonsense now, and let's keep going, is kind of how I'm feeling. I was reading the page in the book that talked about that, the trap of unforgiveness, and it's like, take that, Satan, you will hold us captive no more. That's how I ended it. And I just want us all to feel that way, and feel that, like, not today, Satan. We're done playing this game with you now. So thank you, Jonathan, for being with us. I always feel like we could talk for like 3 hours. I'm sure you have lots of notes and lots of suggestions for people. If you are in the southeastern Wisconsin area and you're looking for a church home, Southbrook Church is a beautiful place. We'll include information about that church. Jonathan has amazing sermons. There are so many great places out there for you to get the support and love that you need. You're not alone. If you're going through these things, I know that this can be a very difficult topic. So if this triggered something for you, if you feel that you just need support, ask for help. There's so many resources out there. We'll share some with you. But there is help out there, and you are not alone, and you heard this for a reason, and God loves you so much. So don't you give up. So on that note, We'll see you again on the next episode of The Funny Kind. Thanks, Jonathan.
All good. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks for tuning in to The Funny Kind with Erica Gumieny, where humor meets healing and inspiration meets action. If this episode made you laugh, think, or become inspired, be sure to like, share, and tell a friend who could use a dose of heart and humor today. And don't forget to tune in to The Funny Kind right here on Transformation Talk Radio for more real talk, big laughs, and light bulb moments. Want to connect with Erica and learn more about turning your pivotal moments into powerful growth? Visit yourpivotalpoint.com. Until next time, keep laughing, keep loving, and keep spreading a little bit of funny and a whole lot of kind.